Well, hello, it's Andrew again, and here we are, another beautiful day in Christchurch, and this is episode 19, and it's day 15 of our national lockdown, and I think I got the numbers right today. It's the day before Good Friday, so this morning we're going to consider Matthew's account of the Gethsemane story. So we pick it up in Matthew chapter 26 and verse 26. Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I'm deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." I suggest that this is a crunch time in the gospel narratives. I want to go further and suggest that it's actually a fulcrum point. It's a point where the destiny of humanity, and in fact the destiny of the whole of the created order, is about to be decided. It hangs on the decisions that are made in this event. And it's also a very human story. We see two responses to the challenges facing Jesus. The response of Jesus himself and the response of the disciples. Let's first consider the disciples. They had never seen Jesus like this. The one who was usually so calm, even serene, sometimes passionate and energized, sometimes angry, is overwhelmed as he faces an unnamed challenge that looms in the darkness ahead. There's a proverb that a frightened captain makes for a frightened crew. They are observing Jesus moving in a transition stage through fear to faith. And they're seeing him as most human, and I want to suggest they find it deeply unsettling. They are watching how Jesus comes to terms with his own impending death, recognizing that he has a choice, and finding himself in the in-between place in the two options. James tells us that a double-minded person is unstable. And Jesus, human as he is finding himself in this place of instability, this place between the settled decision which is yet to be made in his own heart. Yet he needs to experience this. He needs to experience this uncertainty. He needs to experience this unsettledness, this instability, and go through it to find clarity and steadiness of soul. I'm sure that's something that's familiar to all of us. The disciples are aware that there is a battle going on for Jesus' soul, and it's uncomfortable for them. I'm going to suggest that this may be the reason that they kept falling asleep, or the primary reason. Staying awake and being with Jesus through this was just too hard. They may have been tired, and they'd have every reason to be, but I'm suggesting it may have been a bit more than that. This might sound a bit odd, but I was part of a Gestalt therapy group close to 20 years ago. And one of the things that was observable within the group is that members of the group, including me, would fall asleep from time to time when someone else was in process. It became evident that more than tiredness was at work. Falling asleep was a way of checking out from something that may have been boring, but more likely was touching deep parts in ourselves that the sleeper within us wished to avoid. Mostly this was beyond our conscious awareness. What I'm suggesting is, let's not be too quick to judge the disciples on their lack of constancy. The spirit may indeed have been willing, but the flesh was, as has been said, weak. Them yesterday, today, it could be us. I imagine this was a very distressing incident for the disciples. And dropping off to sleep was a way of avoiding it. And now Jesus himself. Yesterday I suggested that finding courage can often be a process. It's not necessarily something that comes suddenly upon us. It can be the product of habits and choices that we make. We see Jesus in the middle of such a process. I'm interested that this process involved 3 times of prayer, 3 distinct, discrete times of prayer, in which we see this shift occurring. A shift from fear to faith. A shift from a desire to bolt to a place of settledness of heart and mind, a place of resolve. As his ministry was about to start, right 3 years earlier, we saw him confronted with 3 temptations. Once he'd passed the test, we see according to Luke that in chapter 4 verse 13, when the devil had finished all this tempting, he left him until an opportune time. So here in Gethsemane, this may be such an opportune time. I like the way in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, where he has the shadowy figure of Satan lurking close by. And it seems to me that it kind of puts us back to the temptations 3 years earlier. This is such an opportune time. We notice that Jesus' first plea in his prayer is, "If it is possible, let this cup pass from me." He wants a way out, if it's possible, if there's any way. Yet he follows with the rejoinder, "Yet not what I want, but what you want." Jesus knows what is required of him. He has a deep sense of it, yet he still would love there to be another way, a way out. His second plea is, "If this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." We see him shifting towards saying yes to this most unpalatable and unpleasant of options. But we see him on his way. "If this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." So we see him in a place of transition. By the 3rd time, Jesus' heart and mind is set, and his resolve is firmly established to complete his course. The cross is now a formality. The battle is fought and the outcome is determined here in the garden. I want to stress that. We imagine that it's on the cross that the real battle rages. I'm suggesting that it's here in the garden. In the garden, the outcome is decided. Here in the garden, it's that Jesus' resolve is settled within him. It's here in the garden that his spine is now like a rod of steel. And it might seem odd, but it's here I want to suggest that he now has a measure of peace, even of serenity. The choice is made, the future set, and he's ready to embrace what comes. Sometimes there's worse things than the event itself. The fear of the event can be worse. It may be that part of the clue to this is found in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 2, where we read that we see Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, seated at the right hand of the Father. And he's not alone. He's brought us with him. And I want to suggest that this is the point of it all. It's as he's going through this process, there is something within him that recognizes the significance of what's going on. And it's not just about him. It's about all of us. And that as he goes through this process, he recognizes that he's taking us with him. He's taking us from life through death into life that is life indeed. And he recognizes that it's worth the price to be paid. God bless you as you prepare to move into Good Friday. And if you're intending to click on to tomorrow's episode, which will be our Good Friday service, we will be having communion. We're a church with an open table. The Methodist Church, of which we're a part, has an open communion table, and we as a congregation very solidly embrace that this is open to all who would come. We don't ask you to pass any tests. We don't ask you to sign up for any membership or give assent to any particular creed or affirm that your behaviour over a certain period of time has been holy and right. We simply invite you to come. Come in your need, come in your desire to meet with God in this place. So it's an open communion. Now, of course, you're there and I'm here, although I'll probably be in the church tomorrow. And I can't provide you with the elements, but you can provide them for yourself. So my encouragement for you is to find yourself a plate that is special to you, a small one that you really like, and put on it a little piece of bread, some bread that you actually enjoy, but put some bread there. And offer it with prayer. And that you take a cup, maybe your favourite cup, maybe a special cup, a cup that you don't use perhaps even very often, but one that you set aside and you put in it something too that, grape juice or even a bit of the real stuff will be fine, but it's up to you. That you would actually join with us as you eat and as you drink and you share communion, and also offer a prayer over that as you prepare it for tomorrow. So God bless you. God bless you as you walk through the rest of today, and may you know the peace and the presence of the Lord Jesus.